What is happening, superfans? You're listening to Behind the Mask, the show where we chat with your favorite superhero fiction authors about the worlds and heroes they are writing. Behind the Mask is brought to you in conjunction with the amazing people over at superherofiction.com. I'm your host, Franklin Kendrick, and today on the show, I am pleased to be chatting with author Lucas Flint. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Franklin.
Glad to have you. So, toughest question first, right off the bat. When you're not a superhero behind the keyboard, who are you? What is your secret identity out in the real world?
Well, first off, I am a full-time author and have been for 4 years. That's my day job, basically. But when I'm not writing, I volunteer with my local fire department. I also go to church, volunteer at my church a lot and help there. Hang out with my girlfriend and uh, and go to the gym. I like to work out a lot. And I read books all the time, of course. I'm actually in the middle of reading 2 books at the moment, but yeah, that's pretty much what I do when I'm not, writing.
When we're not like strapped to our keyboards, being like, I really should like get out and walk around to see the outdoors.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
So my next question for you, and I know you've written a ton of books because I have followed some of your series, and I know you've got way more series than I've read. What got you into writing in the first place, and what specifically got you into writing superhero books?
Well, I started writing fan fiction when I was 12. Specifically fan fiction based off of Bionicle, which is an old toy line that Lego had back in the 2000s. Don't know if you ever heard of it or not, but
Oh yeah, I loved Bionicle back in the day.
yeah, yeah. So I wrote a ton of fan fiction based off of that, and I just enjoyed writing so much that I decided to I wanted to do that as my career. Um, so I used fan fiction as a way to practice and hone my skill. And then in 2014, I officially published actually my first book, but it wasn't a superhero book. It was an epic fantasy, like sword and sorcery book under my real name, Timothy L. Sarapaka. I wrote epic fantasy and sword and sorcery for a couple of years, and I didn't really do too well until 2016 when I released the Superheroes Test, um, which was my first superhero book. And the reason I wrote it is partly because of like financial reasons, because like I said, the fantasy wasn't paying the bills, and um, it seemed like the superheroes were, it felt like something I could do better than epic fantasy. 'Cause that's a pretty tough genre to break into, in my experience. And also because I just love superheroes so much, so getting to write them for a living's been, been a lot of fun. So, and I've been writing them ever since.
Oh my
With
gosh.
occasional foray into other genres, but superheroes my bread and butter.
I can tell from browsing uh, your Amazon page. I'm like, oh my gosh, what? Like, I don't know. Do you think this one is not on my list of questions, but since you brought up writing fan fiction, because I also wrote fan fiction when I was younger, and I think I learned a lot from doing it. Do you think that the like sense of like ongoing storytelling when you're writing fan fiction like prepared you to do like long series under your own like ideas?
Um, yeah, I think that fan fiction helped, like I said, it helped me hone my skills as a writer. And I think it was really good preparation for indie publishing too, because indie publishing and fan fiction are kind of similar in the sense that you're taking your work and publishing it yourself.
Mhm.
Um, and you also have more immediate contact with your readers, like with fan fiction, it's like comments on your story. With indie publishing, it might be like reviews or emails or social media, comments from readers. So fan fiction can be a pretty good uh, way to get started, I think. But it's also a pretty different beast because when you're writing fan fiction, it's like, you're playing in someone else's world, and so you already have all the rules and the setting and the characters and stuff all pretty much there for you. You may decide to take it in your own different direction, and you may decide to add some of your own stuff, but in the end, you're playing with someone else's toys. Which
Mhm.
with like professional, like published fiction, like you're doing your own thing, even if it's inspired by something. You still have to figure out like the world building, making your own characters, and figuring that all out on your own. And that can be a little challenging sometimes. It was a tough transition for me to make, but and I think a lot of my earlier fiction before I started writing superheroes was more, still fairly derivative of Bionicle in a lot of ways. Or at least the ideas came from some of my fanfics, so it took me a while to reach that point where my ideas were a bit more original and more based on my own stuff. But yeah, I think fanfiction did help me develop a lot of my skills. Yeah.
I also think publishing fan fiction like chapter by chapter or even like a bunch at a time is kind of like gets you over the hump of the like self-consciousness of like the indie publishing world. You're just like, well, I'm clicking a button. Here it goes
Yeah.
out into the world.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was like like I said, it was like for me is that I was already used to the concept of doing it, putting myself out there myself. So I mean, it's a little bit more. The indie publishing is a little bit more involved than just putting fan fiction up online, of course, but
Mhm.
it's similar enough that it was an easy transition for me to make. Um, I did consider trying to submit to traditional publishing, but I figured, after doing my research, that indie publishing was the best way to go. So
Yeah, definitely if you want to be prolific, it's
yes.
kind of like the only thing slowing you down is your own like writing speed basically
Hmm.
or waiting for cover
Yeah,
art
your
to come back.
resources. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's a publisher on the planet that could keep up with my speed. Not that I would be like, if a publisher wanted to publish like a series of mine or something like that. If they offered me a deal, maybe I would consider it. But at the
Mhm.
moment, I'm pretty happy with indie publishing. That's where I'm just gonna stay for now.
Very cool. So turning the spotlight over to your books, um, I guess you can choose. I know you mentioned you have a new series coming out. If you want to talk a little bit about who some of your superheroes are and what their lives are like, basically.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a tricky question because I do have a ton of books out. Um, I guess I'll talk about Bolt, who's my first superhero character, the protagonist of the Superhero Sun series, and also the Lightning Bolt series, and he's been involved in the Dimension Heroes and Tournament of Heroes crossovers as well. So he's probably my character I followed the most. Is that the most read about him? He's basically a teenager who's he can fly, super strength, super speed. He can shoot red lightning from his hands. He's just he's a generally upright guy. He's a little impulsive. And he's very fearless, partly because of his powers making him so much stronger than most of his enemies. But that also sometimes gets him into trouble. And so it's when he ends up running into a situation that he can't just like punch his way out of or blast his way out of, which happens pretty regularly because the guy keeps looks interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so he's the son of a legendary superhero named Genius, who's pretty much the exact opposite of him in terms of like personality, which leads to some conflict in the Superhero Sun series. Although he and his dad do love each other, and this just the personality differences and different views on the superhero life that lead to some conflicts between them. Um, and there's also Beams from my minimum wage sidekick series. He's another, teenager. He can shoot lasers from his eyes. So in comparison to Bolt, he's comparatively weaker but he's also, I think, a little bit smarter, more tactical. Like he has to be, he just rush into situations like Bolt, so he has to be a bit more careful when he's fighting, or in dangerous situations. Um, and he works as in that series, he works as a sidekick for his boss Rubberman, who's for minimum wage, obviously, as the series title says.
Yeah.
and he's just trying to save up money to buy a car, basically, but ends up having to save his city regularly from
Oh, jeez.
various bad guys and criminals and corporate whatever. So it's just it's a pretty fun series, and the Superhero Sun series is also fun too. I like to make my books fun because superheroes are fun; they should be fun. So
Definitely. So for your heroes, um, do they all, when they get their powers, or are they born with their powers, or do they all get them from various ways?
yeah, the thing is that I'm not just prolific, but I also have like 4 different superhero universes because I just like to make life
Yeah.
harder for myself. Or I'm trying to do the DC multiverse thing like they're doing with the Arrowverse and the Titansverse and stuff like that. So exactly how they get their orange or their powers varies. Like uh, in the Superhero Sun and related series, superpowers are genetic. So you're born with it or you're not.
Okay.
Can't really. So and it usually develops in your like when you hit puberty or in your teenage years, and the power you get is pretty random. There's no way to know ahead of time. Even if your parents both have powers, you might not necessarily like have the same powers as them. So Bolt ends up discovering his powers totally by accident when he punches his bully through the wall of the cafeteria at school, which is when he just and while Beams, for example, gets his in the my psychic universe, superheroes are a business, so superheroes get their powers through like maybe their technology or from science or whatever, or just buying equipment or whatever that might. So, but Beams got his when he drank a scientific like a serum that his science teacher had made, uh, that gave
That's,
him his I-beam powers because
that's
his science
never a good
teacher.
idea.
Yeah, it was on a bet. It was on like a dare from one of his friends, so it wasn't a very smart move. But
Oh, geez.
yeah, and in my other and then Legacy superhero series, which is in another universe, the main character got his powers from his costume, basically. Yeah, which
Okay.
which is partly alien origin, partly human made. So and then in Capes Online, which is my little RPG superhero series, the powers come from just like these power crystals that players can get and like add to their costumes or their weapons or whatever, and those can give them like powers that they can then level up and get more stronger and stuff. So I tend to go for a universal explanation for powers, I guess, in a lot of my stories rather than just come up with unique origin stories, which I mean, but like I said, it varies a lot. So
Yeah, you got to keep it fresh for yourself as well as for like the readers, because I feel like, I mean, there really isn't. I mean, when I say like, oh yeah, I've never seen this before, I always find someone that has done something I'm trying to do. So it's like,
there's
okay,
nothing
you
new
just,
under the sun.
there's nothing really new. So you just have to kind of, I mean, I do like, I like that your universes are kind of like they cross over, but they all kind of are like different ways that it happens. It's not all like everybody is just born with it, or
Hmm.
um, but I do think it's interesting, the whole uh, genetic side of thing, where it's like it's luck of the draw. You don't know what you what you're going to come up with, because it's kind of like it's kind of true for real life, where it's like you go through puberty, you don't really know how you're going to come out of it.
Yeah.
So then once it's done, you just have to figure out how to live with it and work to your strengths. So
Yep. Yeah, pretty much.
So what about that? I know that there's multiple, but the world of your books, is it a fictional world, or is it based in our reality, or how do you describe it?
Pretty much all my stories are set in real life. Like they're on Earth, they're in, set in America, and I'll reference real life locations and people and stuff like that. But I'll like make up like towns and cities and people like maybe the president is different from whoever from the current president, or the certain businesses or whatever might not exist, or might have just make little differences here and there, so it's similar but not quite the same. And I mean, occasionally, because my stories do sometimes feature dimension hopping, so sometimes I'll end up going to some pretty like alien worlds or whatever. But at least one time they went to an alien planet. But in general, it's like real life, except with a few fictionalized locations or people and stuff.
Gives you plenty of opportunity to make nefarious organizations and all,
Yeah,
all of that jazz.
yeah.
I'm always intrigued by the like made up like businesses where it's like, oh, you don't want to do like they walked into a Walmart or whatever. So it's
Hmm.
like you make up your own, like it's a nice uh way to like build up your world, and it's familiar enough that you don't have to like explain what it is. It's just like your
Hmm.
own variant of stuff that's already established.
Yeah, and I guess it can also help if you're worried about like trademarks and copyright and stuff like that
Oh,
too.
jeez.
So
I haven't run into too much of that
yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
myself, but it's like I also
Hmm.
don't I don't feel like they broke open a Coke. Like, no, I
Yeah,
never I never go that far for my
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I think it's okay most of the time. It's just some people are worried about it, and I never had any problem either. But um, I just kind of like making my own stuff just because that way I have more freedom with what I can do with it. And I don't know. It
Yeah,
just feels like it's easier to immerse in my world if I have my own stuff. So
definitely. Let me see. What do I got here? Um, so I know you talked about um, from your first series, the like a father and son relationship.
hmm.
Do um, any of your other heroes, do they ever team up? I know you said that there's
Yeah.
crossovers.
Yeah. I definitely have. I do crossovers. Like I treat the crossovers as like these big, sort of like the Avengers movies. Like do it every few years, maybe these big. And they're always trilogies. And are technically, in my, I treat them as like one continuous story, even though I do publish them as 3 volumes. So I've done 2 crossovers so far. There's Dimension Heroes, which crosses over Bolts and Beams, from the superhero Sun's minimum wage sidekick. Then there's Tournament of Heroes, which crosses over superhero Sun, minimum wage sidekick, legacy superhero, and Capes Online. That's been my biggest one yet, and they're always really fun to write. Like I said, they're pretty much always big epic stories, and it's always fun just to get to revisit characters I might not have written in a while and have them interact with other characters, and how they all interact with each other. And it's just been, just a lot of fun to do. But I don't, like I said, I don't do them, all the time. Just like maybe every couple of years. Like my
Mhm.
next crossover probably won't be until 2021, late 2021, early 2022, maybe. I'm still trying to think about that one over about what's going to be like if I, or when I'll do it. But because it's, because they have a lot of different like viewpoints, and they're fun to write, but they also take a lot of um, they take a bit more work, I think, than like standalone series, just because you have juggling all those characters and all those worlds and stuff. So, but yeah, I like doing them.
For those, do you, I mean, even for just your standalone series on their own, do you have like how do you keep track? Do you keep like a spreadsheet of like here's where everything is headed so that you can easily like jump to okay, here's the crossover book in a year.
Mhm. Um, like I said, I'm still trying to plan out the next crossover. I do have a basic idea for what's probably going to be about, but I don't have anything concrete just yet. But for my for all my series and the different universes there, I keep detailed world building notes, like separate files for each of them. They also have like timelines in them, so I know, uh, when did this happen? When was this character born? Or when did this person get their powers? Or when did this thing happen? Um, and so I regularly will consult those timelines, and writing in those worlds just to make sure that everything makes sense. And I got character bios and uh, just all the information that I need to be able to write in those worlds. I do remember most of it just in my head, but it's helpful to have those notes to be able to look up little details about um, things I may have forgotten, like eye colors or this minor character's name or this person's powers or whatever. So
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like eye color and like what uh, for me, I feel like sometimes it's like, what type of clothes do I always describe them in? Like, what is their style? I don't want to like change them up
yeah,
mid book or mid series. Like, oh, all of a sudden they're not interested in what they used to be. Whoops, I totally messed that
hmm
one up.
yeah. Sometimes I'll literally just like copy and paste the character's description from a story and just plop it into my notes and use that description whenever I need to remember what they look like or what they're wearing or whatever. So
So that's one of
um,
the nice things about modern, like being able to work digitally is like something that when I first started writing as like a young kid, it was like, here you go, here's a spiral bound notebook. And like
hmm
I always felt like I was crossing things out or like wishing I could just rearrange stuff to where it would need to be. But now it's
yeah.
like we can do pretty much like as much organizing as we want, basically. And you kind of have to, like you said, working on like, I mean, just one book is a big undertaking, even if you've done it like a dozen times. It's always like it's nice to have everything right at your fingertips, ready to go.
hmm Yeah, I always have the documents open when I'm, writing a book. So that way, if I can, like, just look up details if I need to and stuff. So I agree, it's very convenient.
Yes. So I know you mentioned Bionicle, which I love because I still have a drawer with some of them.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that inspire you to write what you write? It could be movies, comics, TV. What are some of the things that inspire you?
Um, well, a lot of things that inspire me. I know that the like old Bionicle books were a big inspiration for me early on. They were written by Greg Farshtey. I don't know if you ever read any of those, but um,
Oh, those were like the first comics they tried to do, where it was
uh,
like, or no, oh no no no, those were like the mini, were those like the mini novels they did?
yeah, yeah,
Yes, okay, yeah, yeah,
yeah. Those are
yeah.
great. Um, so those were I haven't read them in I haven't reread them in a while, but they were good. And there's also um, Stephen King has been a big inspiration for me, even though I haven't read anything he's written in a while either. But he's a pretty good he's a obviously a really great writer. I almost said pretty good there, but I think great is probably a better term. um, I like J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter has influenced me a lot. There's also been several like anime and manga that I especially like. that have influenced me, like Full Metal Alchemist, Rurouni Kenshin, One Piece, My Hero Academia. Um, and in terms of like movies and stuff, the Marvel movies have obviously been a big influence on me. Um, and I also like Avatar: Last Airbender a lot. So I've had
Oh yeah.
lots of influences.
I'm trying to think of because you mentioned maybe eventually going back and revisiting like old stories. Um, One thing that I love to do for inspiration is, and like J.K. Rowling for sure, is I feel like even though I've read like books that I've loved so many times, like every single time that I feel like I need like to go find inspiration, it's like picking up something that I have loved and then looking at it again. I always feel like I find something new, but then I also feel like it sort of like primes your like creative brain with like that feeling of like excitement that you had when you first
Yeah.
read or watched something that had like a big impact on you for entertainment.
Hmm. Yep. Feel the same way.
So it's like you can never really throw away your legacy media just in case you want to go back to it.
Yeah. Yep.
Let me see, what else do I got here? I don't know if you have a roadmap for readers, but where would you recommend or where would you suggest that they would start with reading your books if they haven't started?
Well, yeah, I've got lots of different series. The one I always recommend people start with is the Superhero's Son. So the Superhero's Test is the first book in that series. That's my biggest main superhero universe, and that series is my best-selling series, and people didn't like it a lot. And the first book is, currently free on, it's wide now. It used to be in Kindle Unlimited, but now it's wide. It's perma-free, so you can download it for free off Amazon, Kobo, iTunes, wherever you get your book, ebooks from. It's also on paperback. But I've actually got a series, like a free reading order and series guide that's also on Amazon and all the other ebook retailers. That's basically just like a listing of every book I've ever written and the series and which correct reading order or preferred reading order, links to where you can buy them and what the different universes they're in and stuff. So you can find that. Like I said, I think it's called the official Lucas Flint reading guide and series order or something like that. I can't remember the exact name, but you can find it on Amazon and everywhere else. You can even download it off my website. Oh God, uh, so I made that because obviously it's my books and I want to make it easier for readers to find, figure out where to start.
Oh yeah, I feel like the number one thing for me when I'm searching for a new series to read is I hate it when I stumble across like a book two or three and they're not listed inside or somewhere to let me know that there's stuff before. And usually that used to be like me walking into like a physical bookstore problem with like epic fantasy, where it's like, would you please just let me know which one is your first book or where I should start? But like, I think the nice thing about having multiple series like you do is there's like various points of
Yeah.
entry. And then even if you start one series that crosses over or takes place later on than the other ones, you can always, I find a lot of fun and excitement as a reader going back and reading like a like, what do you call it? Like a parallel series where I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, all this stuff happened before the stuff that I've
Yeah.
read. So I can be like, here's how everybody got to where They are, and maybe it's like the like long time comic book reading within me that has like trained me to be like, there's decades and decades of stuff about these characters that I just have never read. But I'm always uh, excited when it's like, oh, there's stuff that tells you not they're not prequels really, but it's like stuff that you just haven't gotten to.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
I I do have a quick question about I guess it sort of like circles back to your what got you into writing superhero stuff. Because I do remember when you first started the Superhero Sun series.
Hmm.
Um, at what point did you know you were gonna stick with it and just because I know a lot of people who have written epic fantasy and like because they love it, but then they end up just like abandoning it because it's just such a tough genre to get people to
Yeah.
find your stuff. When did you know you were gonna like this is my main series at least for the moment. I'm just gonna keep going with it.
Well, the first book was like a success right out the gate. I mean, it did better than all my previous books published combined, and you know, rose up really high in the Amazon ranks and made a lot of money. It was just and the next book, and then every subsequent book did really well. So I knew pretty quickly that this is what probably where I should stay or hang out, at least for now. So and I've been there ever since. Oh, and another influence I just remember off the top of right now that has the Percy Jackson books by Rick Riordan. I don't know if you've
Oh
read those,
yeah,
but yeah, that,
he's
which is
still
funny because
going.
yeah, he's still going. I haven't read most. I don't think I've read any of his like more recent stuff, but it's funny because I remember like when I released the final book of my Superhero Sun series back in 2016. That book actually was in the also bots of one of Rick Riordan's books. I can't remember which one it was, but I thought
Oh,
that was
that's
pretty cool.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's how you know you're targeting correctly the young adult audience because I used to I knew a bunch of when when I worked at a movie theater I had a bunch of coworkers who were younger and they all like devoured the Percy Jackson books and it was like
Hmm.
here have you read them here do you want to read it I was like sure I'll check this out and that's how I got into them but it was like oh my gosh like I would have never picked this up because I probably wouldn't have been walking in the section of the store where they are.
Yeah.
Let me see. This one, I guess this one could be a tricky question. Um, do you have a favorite plot line that you have come up with, or do you have um, a twist that surprised you when you stumbled across it?
Um, yeah, it's that second question. That happens to be a lot 'cause I don't write with an outline, so I'm constantly surprised by my own twists. Um, so, uh, although I do sometimes think of them ahead of time. In recent years, I've become a bit more focused on trying to have some type of loose plot to follow first before I write, but in general, I don't use an outline. So, but in terms of like favorite plot lines, thinking about it. Do you mean like in terms of like series or individual books or just?
It could be either of those. If you want to go like super broad, it could
Hmm.
be a series twist, or if you, I don't know. I always think because I do like partial. I feel like I always do like a half outline, and then I always end up going away from it once
Hmm.
I have the first half done.
Yeah.
Then I can kind of like feel my way through to the end, and it's like sometimes the ways that I get my characters to where they need to be is kind of like, oh, I wouldn't have come up with that if I was just sitting down
Yeah.
writing note cards.
Yeah. But but yeah, back to the question in terms of plot lines. I really liked. I guess my favorite. One of the favorite books I wrote was the superhero's powers, which is the fourth superhero son book, which is where Bolt gets his powers stolen. He basically has to be on the run the whole book from his arch enemy who stole his powers, and has to figure out a way to survive and also defeat him. I really enjoyed writing that one. And I also enjoyed the first minimum wage sidekick book, and also the first Capes Online book. But those two books in particular, I feel pretty proud of myself, just because I don't know. I feel like I put a lot of effort into them. I feel like they both came out really well, and especially the Player Blackout, the first Capes Online book. That was because it was my first lit RPG book, and it was just really, really fun to write. It came out really well, I think. It sold really well too. It's one of my best-selling books ever, so it's nice to see readers enjoy it. In terms of twists, I think probably my favorite twist for many of my stories was the origin of the main villain from the Capes Online series, Paradox. I don't know if I want to get into spoilers too much here, but it was a twist that I really that I just sort of came. It sort of came out of it changed my original plans for him a lot, because I've been playing something differently for him. But when I thought about it, I realized it made a lot more sense. It was more interesting. So that's one I enjoy a lot, and I think about a lot. So
I have a question that is not on my list that I just thought of. How, because you do this full time,
yeah.
How quickly from like your idea to like a publishable draft, how quickly do you write a book?
Well, because I'm always writing something, but I'm also always thinking of stuff. So like my upcoming series I have coming out, the first book's coming out in August. Like I've been thinking about that one for a while, and I wrote the first book a few months back. I can't remember when exactly I wrote it, but because like I'm always writing an idea and working on another one,
Mm-hmm.
Trying to sort of plan ahead, not really outline, but have a basic idea of like what am I going to write after I finish this book or after this series. But when I actually sit down and you have to get the idea figured out, which it can depends. Sometimes it takes a long time to figure it out. Sometimes I pretty much know what it is right away. When I actually sit down and write, it can take me from like 2 to 3 weeks to bang out the first draft. I mean, it depends on the length of the story, but
Mm-hmm.
and then then editing is another couple weeks, and then formatting usually takes a couple hours to do, and then it's pretty much all ready to go. Of course, then I ordered the cover, my cover designer somewhere along the way. My cover designer usually takes like a month or so, that's usually one. Usually I order the cover after I finish the first draft, and while I'm editing or after I've edited, depending on how fast I'm working. So, although I've been recently trying to slow down a little bit, because I'll do a book a month there for a while, but this year I've done like a book every other month, just to give myself a bit more breathing room. I can write ahead, and maybe if I miss a day or so, it won't be as hard on me, or won't be as bad. I can take my time editing a little bit more, so try out some new like long-term marketing techniques and stuff, and see how that stuff works. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm always changing my process all the time. I'm always trying out something new.
Yeah.
Now that I've told you this, I'm probably gonna do something completely differently next time I sit down, right? That's just how I work. But
Yeah, it's like a very organic process.
mm-hmm.
I think constantly being able to evolve as an indie is what keeps you going, really, because it's not the same. It's not the image that a lot of people have, where it's like you just go to a coffee shop and you sit there every day and you do the same It's like it's not really, and the being able to mix it up is like healthy for your like creative brain to not get stuck in the same routine over and over and over. So you feel like you're just like a word machine.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always, trying new things, whether it's new things with my writing or new things with, publishing, like new marketing techniques or whatever. And um and always, because I can sort of feel it when I start to become like, I feel like I've done this before, or I feel like I'm not really doing anything new or interesting. So sometimes I'll just do something just because, it's different and, it
Mhm.
feels a little bit more interesting. Like, um, in my, like, an example is that I'm currently in the process of writing another RPG series that probably won't come out until next year. Um, but to make it different from the first one, the main character is actually a musician in his band. Like they're a band of superhero musicians, basically going around the game world, like doing concerts and stuff. So I mean, there's more
That's
to it
pretty
than that, but
cool.
yeah,
That makes
yeah,
me think of oh, I don't know, it makes me think of like a like oh, what the heck is the guy's name? Oh man, I'm sorry. My brain just stopped. But the makes me think of Patrick Rothfuss, where it's like a traveling musician. Like,
yeah,
that is something that you see in a fantasy setting. I don't think I've ever thought of traveling superhero musicians, so that sounds pretty exciting to me.
yeah, yeah. It's been fun to write so far, but like I said, it's not gonna come out until probably next year or so, depending. But it's been like I said, that's why I said just want to do something different, try to mix it up and see how it goes. Sometimes, of course, experimenting with stuff, experiments can work, but sometimes they can fail. And I've had my share of, failures and stuff, but also my share of successes. So
Mhm,
just gotta keep on keeping on.
definitely. I have a cover question for you
Okay.
because I am a huge fan of a lot of your covers. Do you tell the artist a scene that you want on the cover after you're done your draft, or do you just kind of like do you like direct them to what the art is going to be for the end product, or do they kind of come up with that on their own?
Um, my general, like when I'm working with cover designers, I like to hire, like competent, experienced designers who know what they're doing and don't need me to handhold them. Like I prefer to just like I'll give them like a basic idea, like I want this character in this pose,
Mhm.
it looks like this, facing the reader, doing this or whatever. But I won't get, nitty gritty or feel like I have to like micromanage them. I'll just tell them that and let them do their magic and
Mhm.
and of course I'll give my feedback as they show me like different drafts as they're working through them and you know, but like I said, I guess the way I say is that my cover designers, they're more experienced with this stuff than me. They have a better idea of how to make it look good than I do. So I'll just give them, what they need to know, and then let them do their own thing. So
It's very cool. I was gonna say. They were always even from your first series, they were always like so sharp, and I was always like, oh my gosh, it's
yeah,
like it's like a blockbuster just like condensed onto like a book cover. Which is like you don't see. I mean, it's sort of something that as like somebody who reads indie books, you kind of like take it for granted in a way because there are so many talented
hmm,
artists working on book covers. But when you look at some of the like professionally published like DC cover art, you're like, oh my gosh, like this does not reflect what I expect from like a DC Comics story. So it's really, I gotta say, it's nice to you. I mean, it set a cover sets the tone for your whole from the start. So
yeah,
it's nice to have it be like big and flashy, which is like what
hmm,
I'm happy that a lot of them are. Uh, in the indie world, we've come a long way, and artists aren't so afraid to be like, "Oh, what is this ebook world?" It's like, no, you want to come work with us.
hmm, yeah,
I have a couple questions left for you.
okay.
Um, I know you haven't gone into it. You can if you want, or you can not. It's up to you. For future books, I know you mentioned you have at least one coming down the way. What can readers expect from your at least next installment or your upcoming new series?
Okay, my upcoming new series is called Ashley Jason. It takes and the first book coming out next month is called Ashley Jason, the Superhero Academy. It actually takes place in the Neoverse. It's like which is the same setting as the Superhero Sun and other related series. And Ashley is actually the daughter of Bolt. Like this goes skips forward to the
Oh,
future a little
cool.
bit. Um, so she's like her dad. She's a she's a superhero or a super. They're called short at this point. But unlike her dad, she's like she has this genetic disorder that means every time she uses her powers, she hurts herself a little bit more. It's like slowly killing her over time. And she ends up going to the superhero school so she can be monitored by the science teacher there, who is a like a brilliant neogeneticist, as I call them, like studies the superhuman body, understands and stuff. And he's trying to help cure her. Um, and so, and then it turns out, but then when she enrolls there, a supervillain terrorist named Parasite threatens to destroy the school because he has a grudge against Ashley and her dad. And so part of the series is trying to get that cure for her disease and also deal with Parasite and stuff. And so and that's just the first book. It's going to be a 4-book series. And actually, I just uploaded the files onto Amazon today, July 15th, and it's going to be up for pre-order. So whenever the files go live on Amazon, it should be up for pre-order. I don't usually do pre-orders, but it's like I was saying earlier, I always got to try something new. So I'm trying something new here. It's going to be a short pre-order, and it'll go live on August 1st. So you'll be able to pre-order it on Amazon for like 99 cents, and then get it in Kindle Unlimited when it actually comes out in August. So
Very awesome. I think to piggyback on your thing about pre-orders, I've only done one or two, but I find that is helpful for if you definitely want something to come out specifically on a certain date, because it's so hit or miss. Sometimes Amazon is so quick with files where it's like, oh,
yeah.
They uploaded it like 2 hours before the first. No, now it's technically the 31st, which has happened to me before. Where I'm like, oh man, it doesn't really matter in the long run, but it's nice to have it be like, here you go, it's official. The tension is rising.
Yeah. This book I was serializing the first 5 chapters on to my newsletter for my subscribers, like for the last month or so. Try to hype them up a little bit and see. I got a lot of clicks and stuff, so I think some people on my mailing list are interested. I'm looking forward to the release.
Definitely, I'm glad that it's a continuing with some characters that we already know, because I always love the like generations type stories where it's like it's the next generation. We'll see how they do.
Yeah, it's got new characters and old characters alike, so it'll come out August 1st.
So my last question isn't really a question, is more of a prompt, but where can readers find you, and where can they find your books?
Yeah, you can. I guess my main hub on the internet is my website, www.lucasflint.com. That's where you can find all my like links to all my books, and you'll see find out what my newest releases are. You can find a free download of my reading order guide that I mentioned earlier. And I've also got a newsletter, which you can sign up on the website there. And if you sign up for the newsletter, you get a free minimum wage psychic novella just for signing up. That's not available anywhere else. And my books are, of course, and I've also got, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under Lucas Flint, so you can just search on those platforms and you'll find me. And of course, my books are on Amazon, and I'm sort of a mixture. Some of them are in Kindle Unlimited, some of them are wide. So some of my books are on Amazon exclusively, but others you can find elsewhere, like on Kobo, Nook, Apple Books, Google Play, and other places. And of course, got paperbacks and just a couple of audiobooks out as well. So
it's like pick your poison, people. Go out and get them.
yeah, buy them all, please.
Yes, please. Especially the audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
For listeners, audiobooks are a big deal. And I know we're not doing so much commutes right now, but you can go for a walk with your phone. You want to go get the audiobooks.
Yeah. Yes. Our narrator would be happy too.
Yes, please. That's all I got for you. So I guess if there's anything else you want to say, speak now, forever hold your peace.
I guess that's about it for now. Just thanks for having me on, Franklin. I really enjoyed it. Good interview.
Yes, thank you for being on. I have my little closeout spiel, guys, for the listeners out there. Just want to let you guys know, if you liked what you heard in this podcast, whether it was on YouTube or your favorite podcasting site, just please make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss out on any new episodes, because there will be plenty more coming. Just hit the like button if you can, ring the bell to get notifications when stuff goes live. Usually episodes are on Fridays. Let us know in the comments, if you're able to comment, what you thought. If you discussed any of the books that we talked about. If you mention spoilers, just please give a spoiler tag if there's anybody browsing the comments like me usually, who doesn't want to be spoiled, so that way we can avoid the big twists before we read the books themselves. But as
Don't
always,
spoil me either.
Yeah, please. So as always, everybody, I just want to thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you all, whether you're new or old to this podcast, and I will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.